All right, thanks everybody with us. A little bit of traffic this morning. Today's May 10th. I was gonna say it's 3rd, but no, May 10th. I called meeting the City of Hudson Industrial Development Agency to order. Mr. Hushik, will you please do the roll call?
Heather Campbell. Here. Kamal Johnson.
Here.
Cheryl Kazluga. Absent. Randall Martin. Absent. Dominic Moranti.
Here.
Richard Wallace. Absent. Ryan Wallace.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Can I get a motion in a second to accept and place the minutes from the March 29th and April 5th meetings on file?
I'll make a
Motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. One aye. All right. Do we want to do finance first, just to get this out of the way? All right. I need a motion in a second to suspend the regular meeting and enter into the finance committee meeting.
I'll make the motion.
That's like it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's all you, my friend.
Minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Does anyone have any issues with the minutes? Okay, can I get a motion?
Take a slight left turn.
Can I get a motion to take a slight left turn, please? Everybody,
I was timing myself to be on time.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
can I have a second?
Oh, you are.
You
I
are
have
the
a second.
second.
I second it. All in favor? Aye. Okay, I'm going to bring these over to you, Kamal. These are the bank reconciliations for the first quarter. Somebody should sign off on them, so I don't respond with all the money.
All right.
So April and all the way back to January. So we get the reconciliation here. It shows you the clear balance and then the bank statements on the back side. It shows you. If you just want to initial that.
Okay. As always. Yeah.
Power, the great power
That's great responsibility.
and illegible.
Yeah.
For both of us. Okay, cool.
All right.
Can I have a motion to close the finance committee?
I'll make the motion. to close the
I will
finance.
second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Can I get a motion in a second to resume the regular meeting?
Can I just mention that we'll probably need another finance meeting for next
Next
on
meeting,
June
yeah.
7th. So just mindful of that.
That's the new check that came in.
No,
That would be for Chris, if you want to weigh in about the
Oh,
finance
yeah, yeah, yeah.
meeting for June 7th.
Well,
This
I'm not
would
sure,
be-
you might want to do it before June 7th. Is the board, when is the board going to be next? Because I noticed that.
Actually, I feel like it's I think June 2nd was when we were originally scheduled for.
I think it's
I don't know.
scheduled for the 7th.
it's the first.
June
it'll be the
2nd
first
is a
Wednesday.
Friday,
Yeah.
and
The
the following
first-
Wednesday, the first Wednesday.
Okay, it'll be the 7th
And
then.
what was,
So
and the purpose,
for the-
Chris?
No, so
Is-
the finance committee meeting will need to have a separate meeting. I think they're going to want to meet separately. Probably not on the 7th, on a different day after, so there's sending out the RFPs for bond council. So then the finance committee is going to need to review those.
Before that meeting,
I
so
would
you
say
can
before.
approve it at that, on the 7th.
Correct. Are you having a meeting on June 7th? Because it says June 5th, July 5th here. Is that a
That's
mistake?
different. That's a different topic. So the June 7th is the first Wednesday of June. That's
Okay.
your next regularly scheduled meeting. I think the idea is so what Chris says is now we're gonna need to schedule a separate finance committee meeting
Right.
so that you can discuss in the responses to the bond council RFP, which you're gonna discuss when you
Today,
get back into
yeah.
the full meeting. But before we leave finance meeting, I didn't want to lose that
That
discussion
ability, yeah.
point of scheduling another finance committee. meeting.
Finance, we need a meeting before the June 7th meeting, so we can.
Yeah.
You want to motion-
RFP.
you want a
recommend
motion
to
in a
the full
second for
board.
that meeting?
You're gonna have to figure, let's see, so
When do we get-
what was the date that they're due back?
The 30th of
Is that the
May.
30th? Okay, so any day in June would work.
Well, before that.
Before that,
Before
right,
the 7th.
Right.
And presumably they will be fairly straightforward. And the 3 or 4 firms that have been solicited are in the business. And, beat price and delivery time.
So I would say whatever the board members, whatever availability you have, if you're not on vacation that week, pick a day that works for.
Well, there's only the committee.
The 3 of you, yeah.
And Richard is.
Right.
So it would really be I don't have a calendar in front of
That's
me.
what she's looking at right now.
So maybe that's Friday even, or something like that.
Friday the 2nd or Monday the 5th.
Right, yeah, or Monday the 5th, right, but also works.
Yeah, I mean, whatever works for you, I'll make work.
And if it's just the 2 of you, and,
Well, it'd be 3, yeah.
Yeah.
and we've got Richard, so between the 3 of you, you can pick a time. It doesn't have to be at 9:30. So why don't I just I can send out a quick email to confirm
Yeah,
and set a time,
There you go.
Okay, and the chair will set a time.
Yeah.
Okay.
the specific date. So really, we're looking at that Friday or the Monday.
Yeah, so either the 5th or the 2nd, right?
Right.
I'd rather do the 5th, if that works, Monday the 5th,
works for me.
okay? Can I make a motion? Do I have to do a motion for some meeting?
No, I think the
No.
board can authorize you to set a meeting.
Okay.
Yep, and then you just have to give notice.
What time?
What's best for you?
My schedule's pretty open.
Working lunch.
Yeah, we'll bring one.
Liquid lunch.
Yeah, in the morning, 10.
Okay, 10 a.m. And we'll be here, is that okay? Perfect, okay. So
We'll get
Monday,
a legal
June
notice
5th,
out.
10 a.m. CDC is taking care of the noticing.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, all good, all good. Yeah. All right. I will turn it over to you, sir, to walk us through project evaluation and discussion, and then we'll discuss next steps for Providence Hall and Scott report. Gentlemen, if you want to sit up at the table, just because I know we'll probably have a lot of questions and whatnot for you, plus everybody will be able to hear you better.
In the packet, as you know, we went through a very deliberative process in establishing a criteria for evaluating projects. And in the context of this being one of the first few projects to go through that process, we thought it would be useful to lay out some of the criteria, recognizing that this is a project to provide housing and to sustain Section 8 housing, which, the projects that we contemplated when we created this forum, we're not necessarily all housing driven. So Jessica, do you want to?
Sure. In your packet too, what we included was the full UTEC, your policy that you drafted and amended your policy as of September 21st, 2022. And that includes the criteria for evaluating projects. So what the proposed project is requesting is a deviation from your policy. So mindful of that, but in the last page of the policy is the chart. All recall all the work we did to develop this. This outlines sort of some of the things that you will consider when evaluating projects. It takes into account the jobs that would be created or retained as a result of the project, the wages associated with those positions, any economic impacts on the city as well as the county in the region, taking all of that into consideration, looking at workforce training and any workforce development activities that would be proposed as part of the project. And there is a section on affordable housing, environmental impacts that would be made or considered as a result of the project. And then also anything else to consider. One of the things that, as Mike mentioned, it is retaining the Section 8 housing. So there's some of that here. So I think really, Brian, what you might want to do is more have a discussion about that, but maybe start with having Brian or the team talk about a little bit, again, introduce the project, sort of the concept, what your ideas are, and how you're rehabbing it, just as a reminder to the board and any of the public that may be.
Perfect.
Great, sure. So Providence and Skyler Court
152 apartments. 100 of those are senior, with the balance family. We would like to go in and do a rehab, pretty much soup to nuts. Brad, who's next to me, is head of our construction group, so he can go more into that in a moment. But our goal here is to finance the project through bonds and tax credits, and to do this rehab so tenants can have another 30 years of good quality housing. As far as the rehab scope.
Sure. We specialize in place renovation of affordable housing. It's the most efficient way to get it done. For this project, we propose kitchen upgrades, appliance upgrades, lighting upgrades, heating and hot water upgrades. All of these upgrades are to be energy efficient, like the LED lighting, Energy Star appliances, sustainable materials like solid surface countertops for the kitchen cabinets. We also are going to do standard upgrades, painting common area flooring. At Skylar Court, we're going to upgrade the siding to make it more energy efficient, better insulation on the outside. Windows, we're going to replace
new moisture barriers and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And sealants, moisture barriers, sealants. The windows, we're going to upgrade the windows to a more energy efficient window. But that's basically, what we do everywhere.
Yeah. Any, staying on the energy theme for a minute, any plans for renewable energy inclusion or backup power, especially given the seniors and anybody that may have breathing apparatuses or whatnot?
We do have plans for replacing the backup generator at Providence,
Yep.
which is where the seniors are.
Yep. Gas powered still, or?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Still gas powered. And then we haven't been able to investigate the townhomes yet because I believe
Yep.
it, there may be more modular
Yeah.
residential.
They're individual, firewalled off instead of like a mass building.
Right. But the Providence, we are definitely looking into that. But on the townhomes, we have to suss it out.
Okay. Any expansion at all?
No.
Planned at all? So it's just immediate footprint replacement. Any estimates in terms of like what the energy use will go down by, or the water consumption may go down by?
No, we can do that.
I'm curious, just mainly because, again, in the criteria, when we look at like some of the sustainability factors and whatnot,
It's typically 25 to 30% on all our projects when we do the windows, the siding, the boilers. But I think we had IPNA that was going to be done. And we do that anyway because there's additional subsidies that could be obtained through local utilities and whatnot by showing the reduction in the energy.
And just speak briefly to how some of the costs under there by rewarded to the residents in that aspect. Like what is it going to eventually help keep down for them?
Personally?
Yeah, if at all.
What would happen if you didn't do the project?
What would happen if we didn't do the project? Well, I don't know who's toured there before. There's been minimal upgrades to the property since it was built.
Yep.
We've maintained it fantastic. I mean, it really is beautiful, but it's extremely outdated.
Yep.
And so what we do will have an impact on the tenant's quality of life. And of course, it'll have some minimal impact to their energy savings. I mean, just by replacing the windows, it'll help reduce heating costs because it'll no longer be drafty. I don't believe that their windows are all that efficient as it stands. But they'll see dramatic overnight changes to the quality of their of their living.
And the estimated timeline, you're looking at 3 months or 3 years rather, in total 36 months?
For the construction?
Yeah.
No, 1 year.
1 year you can do. it.
1 year, and more than likely, like 6 months.
Right, okay.
We give a 1 year to give us some time, like we're completing a project in Herkimer right now.
Yep.
I was finished on the interiors of those buildings in 6 months. But the generator that we're installing for backup, because it's a senior building,
Yep.
there's been huge delays.
Well, anytime you're working with a power company, yeah, so.
And so that's the final thing that we have. It's going to be completed this month.
Okay.
But it added an extra 3 months to what essentially was a 6-month schedule.
Mr. Chairman, you address what is a Section 8 project, what it benefits the residents, and sustaining this project as Section 8, the importance of that in the community.
So Section 8, project-based, tenants pay 30% of their income towards rent. And the balance of their rent is subsidized by HUD. And HUD, you typically see these contracts as a 20-year contract. We with this finance, we're going to go in and renew it for a new 20-year contract. So as well as sign on to an extended use agreement, and regulatory agreement with the state. So we are re-upping this for another 30 years at a minimum for affordable.
Can I just clarify? When you say, what's the current expiration? Like right now, those are nearing or
There's
have
a few
expired?
years left. I gotta get you the exact
Okay.
date, but
Okay,
it's,
they're close to expiration. So the question really goes to what if you weren't going to be doing this? What happens to the project?
we could potentially lose the Section 8 contract, depending on what the current owners would do, right? So our kind of mission is we go in and we make sure we're extending that affordability.
And when you refer to the extended use and regulatory agreement, just clarify that's related to the low-income housing tax credit, or maybe just for the benefit of the board?
It's so we would most likely be signing on to a extended use agreement with HUD, which would be in direct connection to the Section 8 contract, as well as a regulatory agreement with the state that is in connection with the tax credits.
And that requires,
Keeping tenants at 60% AMI or lower.
Part of the upgrades going to be the laundry facilities for both.
Sorry.
As part of the upgrades could be the laundry facilities for both there.
We typically don't include the laundry because they're rented to local vendors. But if there's an issue within the laundry room, we definitely will address it. You know, typically it's rented to a local vendor who will come and replace and repair the equipment for the tenants, but if it's required, we will definitely take care of it.
Any other board questions? Want to add?
Could you talk to a little bit about the tenants now, what the occupancy is? Or is that 100% rented right now? did you
I
say?
believe it's 100% with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 turnovers.
Okay.
But it's fully up.
and as you were sort of alluding to earlier, the expectation in your construction process is that you're not going to be displacing tenants.
Absolutely not.
That's just so that people understand.
Absolutely not. This is in-place renovation. We typically have a daytime suite set up that if they do not want to be in their unit while we're working, they can have some place to relax. But almost every single one of the projects I've ever done, they've stayed in the apartment. We've isolated the work that we've done to the specific area. We schedule multiple entries, so it's not people coming in doing a whole bunch of things all at once. If we're scheduled to do the kitchen cabinets, there will be a notice put out weeks, if not a month in advance of the units that we intend on entering. In the morning, we go in, we make sure that they're prepared, the cabinets get removed, the walls get spackled, any holes, any damages behind the cabinets. By that afternoon, they have a completely working operational kitchen. And then we'll make another entry a few weeks or months later to come in and do the electrical. And then they'll have a schedule posted, they'll know when we're coming. The workers will come in, they'll remove the electrical fixtures, and by that afternoon, they'll have brand new electrical fixtures. Whatever we're supposed to be doing inside the units or that will impact the tenants immediately, they're well aware in advance of what we're doing and how we're gonna do it.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? about
Please.
The wages. So one of the IDA's criteria has to do with wage and income factors, and one of their evaluation criteria sets are you paying for employees current minimum wage across all job categories, at or above 15 across all job categories, at or above 20 across all job categories, or at or above 25 across all job categories. And I think from your application, it looked like at or above 20. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Just because when you go through this process, that's something to take note of. Right.
Sustainability.
Sustainability.
If you've got rather than just a broad 30, just to, especially on the waterfront, like anything we can do to add points into those columns as we're going through it. So let us know.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if there's the workforce training. So the crews that you're going to work with, local crews, or do you bring in your own crew for it?
So what we do is very specialized.
Yep.
We always advertise locally.
Yep.
We've put on job fairs before because typically there's a limited pool in the local market for what we do. And not only that, we're comfortable with the contractors we have going into tenants' apartments. That's kind of
There's a safety factor. I understand. Yeah.
The biggest safety is you're interacting with tenants. You want to deal with people that you know, you have a relationship with, and they know how to interact with the tenants. They know how you want them to represent. That aside, we always use best efforts for local hiring. So we will advertise 4 weeks minimum of opportunity to bid. We will keep a log of the bidders, and we will also give explanations on hired or not and why.
Anything that you'd be open to in terms of the training, right? So with some of the more technical programs that we have for students that are looking to get into the fields that you guys are working with, is there any opportunity for them to shadow or learn a little bit more from those that are coming in and redoing that, right? Because I mean, very much to what you just said, you're bringing in a very highly specialized skill that I think some of the students in the area that are looking to go into construction could also benefit to learn from.
We have done it before, but we've done it on large projects where we're going to be on site for months, if not years, to give them the opportunity to actually learn. This is going to be pretty rapid. I don't think we're opposed, but I'm going to have to see with our current contractors that we deal with how we would make that happen. When we did our 800 unit project in New York City, it was easy. We were going to be there for
a while,
2 years. And so we were able to bring people on, give them the specialized training. We had put them with plumbers, we had put them with electricians. But on something this small, where we anticipate the actual interior of the work being done in less than 6 months, I don't know if there's going to be a benefit, but we can definitely look into it.
And how quickly would the project get started? Say things stay on track for public hearing.
Yeah,
approvals.
probably a week after we close, we can start mobilizing.
So like August, right? That's what we're hoping for. So if this closed on schedule, we would probably mobilize first week of September, and we would be done with the bulk of the work within 6 months.
Okay.
Chairman, I'm thinking, based on what they're describing, that perhaps instead of an internship, we could work with the construction program at the college.
Exactly.
And we would bring them here, there'd be maybe a 2-hour session where we would bring them here to describe how they got to the point where they bought the project and they financed it. Then take 2 hours of your time, maybe for 2 or 3 sessions, where we give them a tour and give them the overview of the process, where they're not hanging around trying to do, put up a cabinet. And so they will get the career exposure in a program that involves the college, the workforce board, ourselves. And, we would ask you to, have a contractor or 2 or 3 to come in and explain the plumbing, the electric, the painting, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And I think that would, and then we could have more than one student as well.
Right. And I think that's something that you really need to talk to, because doing these types of programs are a lot more affordable to continue affordability and than doing brand new construction.
Before and after alone on the inspection, right? See what installation in the 70s versus 2023 looks like.
Right.
But also like looking at the designs and the plans, that would be.
And come in here and, we would give them an idea of what the IDA did, what the lawyers did. And it would, require an hour or 2 of perhaps 6 or 7 of the people working on your project. But as you point out, we all know, having an intern for a day, sometimes you don't have the work for them that day, and it gets, but that way we could have a class of maybe 12.
And also the contractors could talk how they ended up getting into business schools, it's their path, things like that, so they've got some idea. How they can make the next.
And I think, we can look at that for the hospital. It doesn't mean that in other projects, we wouldn't have a specific designated intern.
It needs to be creative to try to meet the criteria if possible. So it's a good solution.
And if we did it, for hospitality, if we did it for the, even if we went back and did SEC 7, and had these cohorts.
Go back into our favorite drains. No.
No. The meat packing room.
No, thank you. It's incredible. No, I don't think it. No, I don't think
Well,
it's.
certainly that, that's.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not that. So now. Well, that's the answer already. So that's the word.
I don't mean to interrupt, not on that category. That's guaranteed.
What's
As a matter of fact, about 1.6 million of our current construction contract is already deemed towards MWBE.
Okay.
So
Is that in the application?
I don't know if he put it in the application. He really doesn't have as much to do with the contracting and construction as I do.
Okay.
But our contractor that typically does all of our kitchens, the purchase of the materials and the installation is a New York State MBE.
You
So
want to make that an addition to
Yeah,
your application?
I would update the application so there's record for it.
You can do it by letter.
Yeah,
but,
just in a letter amendment.
Supplement the application.
Sure.
And then that would be something that they can take into account when they do the evaluation.
That's great.
the only thing that we hold back on is local, because like I said, it's a smaller pool and it's a specialized thing that we do. But when it comes to MWBE, we always try to.
No one's expecting you to go to Warren Street and buy $7,000 Carrera marble for whatever you need to do, but this is where we are a little bit more flexible.
But if you know of anyone that wants it, it's
Yeah,
available.
exactly. Place has beautiful painting right now that's going on.
For your own homes.
But no, I mean, in general, right? I mean, the more that it can stay either hyper local to Hudson or at least in the county and not go to the big box retailers, we appreciate the best efforts that are made there. Board questions?
I mean, I'll just say, we did our due diligence to call around to some of the cities you guys worked in, and they spoke very highly of the work and how there was.
I have family in Little Falls that have actually driven past the Herkimer project.
Yeah.
I think it's actually gone quite a long way.
I used to be a part owner of the Herkimer project with Bill Vance.
Oh, really?
All right, no
I knew
further
Nathan Boone's.
questions. Do we want to talk about bond council?
This purpose, this is the.
Well, this is the public hearing part, but do we want to talk about just touching quickly on the issuance of the RFP publicly?
Well, I think that the idea is because this involves bond issue, the idea is that we need to engage bond counsel. So the
Third party
idea
bond
is
counsel,
we're going
yes.
to-
I'm not gonna make you do all of it. It's
We're still agency counsel. The idea is, gonna issue an RFP. The finance committee will then review it as, per the finance committee's charter, the idea would review the responses. That'll make a recommendation.
Now we go to the resolution. So in terms of the resolution, we have a resolution in front of us to set the time and date for the public hearing, to review the process. Any questions from the board on the contents we're in? No? All right, do a roll call vote to approve the issuance of the public meeting.
Brian Wallace.
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion and second. Second. All right, now, Mr. Still an aye for me, though.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Brian Wallace is an aye. Dominic Moranti.
Aye.
Heather Campbell. Aye. Richard Wallace is absent. Cheryl Pressler is absent. Kamal Johnson.
Aye.
Randall Martin is absent. 4 votes.
Carries. Excellent. All right, gentlemen. So we will look for the letter, the updated letter for the amendment to the application. The board will individually review when we reconvene the next time. We'll have our discussion on the outcomes of that. And then,
Question is, so for purposes of setting up the notice and the economic evaluation.
Mike, sorry.
So for purposes of the economic evaluation, which we're gonna, before we
Issue.
send out the notice to tax jurisdictions, will you prepare that? So that we have that also request third party evaluation?
We would do our own internal evaluation, but then also get a third-party independent evaluation. I think, you know, we have talked with 3 or 4 firms initially, just to get a sense of, you know, what would be involved. As you know, when we did it with the Depot District, we used a firm in New York City, BJH. We've used we've used Des Moines, we've used MRB, and we used Victoria Stores Associates. You know, I think that we want to be able to not only have them evaluated on the baseline that we would normally use for sales tax, mortgage tax, pilot, benefit, and come up with the multiple of what is the multiple of benefit over the cost of the incentives, but also, you know, look at some of these criteria to you know, give us some ability to do that. I think we can get that done, you know, relatively quickly, but we're gonna have to move fast on that. So we could be authorized to do that, recognizing that the expense is really going to be the developers. And then they were going to give us some indication of firms that may have done the economic analysis for the Ulster County IDA or the Herkimer IDA, and we'll get it done as soon as possible.
So you're gonna have an action from the IDA board to authorize either the chair or you to engage
A firm to do that work.
I'll make that motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
So we'll hold this week.
And some of it'll be, the driving force will be price and timeline deliverable, because
Yep.
each of the firms we discussed are fully capable of doing it.
If you could, I think the tool that you have is very good, so if you can do that as a preliminary, that would be very helpful. I think just as part of the discussion, right, the tool that you have is, I think, really excellent. This is a starting point. Yeah.
Well, we found that several of these firms are now using our tool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica.
Setting the standard. That's good. All right.
Good, thank you.
All right. Anything further on Providence Hall Scout Report? All right. If not,
Well, just from the county's standpoint, we're very, very excited about this, because the affordable housing issue that the county is addressing, as well as the city has been addressing for more than a year and a half, very successfully. You know, this is really consistent with that process. We're grateful that someone is coming in to do this, and not having to go back to market.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome to stay, but if not, you are free to go.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Anyone on the hourly clock can leave.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our next order of business, which is the CLC proposal. We heard from the last meeting about the desire to purchase the land down by the waterfront, behind the sewage treatment plant, behind the shacks, which is majorly wetlands, as well as the dump that was capped in 90 something. I don't remember what the
Doesn't
date is.
include the dump.
Does it? Well, around the dump.
Goes around
There
it.
is. Yeah, exactly.
We don't want all that.
In terms of
Say that, so
next steps, I mean, I want to open up for discussion with the board about what everybody thinks. Did we lose our?
Screen.
You might just have to.
Oh, we might just have to turn the TV on.
It's on here.
Oh.
It's just not.
No, we gotta.
Supposed to see it.
There it goes.
Just power.
The meeting's still going.
Okay, so I want to open it up for discussion from the board. Any thoughts on the sale of the property? One of the things that I had thought of is, let's get an independent audit on the use of the land. It's like there isn't much, and if anybody's been down to the waterfront in the past, like 3 or 4 weeks after a really heavy rain, you're seeing it encroach in the boat launch. You'll see the flood zones around where this land is. I really don't understand what the viability would be to do anything different on the property.
Is that something that the appraisal would address, or
Well,
do we need
yeah.
a different?
Right now, there's, it's on the books of the corporation at 40,000, but it's assessed at 200,000. It's about $2,500 to do an appraisal. But there's also a process that is required by the authority budget office.
Right.
That's what we can go through.
How much should we do? I'm sorry.
$2,500.
$2,500.
So, right, so looking at your one-year procurement policy to look at how you would obtain an appraisal and develop the scope of work under the appraisal, I think it makes sense to look for, you're looking for the highest and best use as well as what is the value of the property.
Correct.
So following that procurement policy there, it says a cost of $3,001 to $15,000. You just have to get 3 quotes and we can manage all that. But if it's under $2,500, we might just do that anyway, just to cover the basis in case that it's
Yeah.
just as easy anyway to follow that rule, that policy. The other policy you'll want to look at is the disposition policy, which is included in the packet. And that does talk, is required to get an appraisal to establish the fair market value.
Yep.
But I think what you can do is expand the scope of work of that appraisal to include that.
I
And
was
that
gonna
might
say,
be
and then-
help you in discussion.
Yeah, do both in one.
Yeah.
and whatnot. Do we need a motion in a second for that?
Yeah, I think you want to authorize that engagement.
What do you all think?
Yeah, I make a motion that we authorize the request for quotes and the hiring of an appraiser to appraise the value of the property.
Oh, look at you go. Okay, second. All right, second. All in favor? Aye.
You're better than AI.
Yeah, exactly.
I am a.
All right, yeah, let's move that forward. if we
Well,
can.
thank you. We've been using it.
Perfect. All right. Anything you want to add, sir?
Well, from the last meeting, one of the questions was just how does this fit within the City of Hudson's comprehensive plan and the local waterfront revitalization plan? And it is part of both of those, just in regards to getting more access to the trails and creating a trail network in this area. We are looking to, if this happens, we would work with Build Hudson in order to construct the trails that are there. And then we are currently working with Build Hudson on a project at the Greenport Conservation Area where they're working with us to revitalize some of the trails there from the main parking lot out to the gazebo, and they're also doing the gazebo that is there.
Nice.
So we're actively working with them at the moment, and we'll continue if this project goes through to work with them in just regards to workforce development to expand their ideas of workforce development to include trail development and sort of more of the recreational outdoor kiosk and gazebo builds.
So that's, in other words, you have workforce development effort as part of the development plan for
Yes.
the trails if you were to acquire.
Yes.
And that goes to the project element. Could you, Mr. Chairman, Could you
Fine.
please
You
provide
gotta stop doing that, just go. We're fine.
comprehensive plan and LWP references just for the board reference, not today, but, you know.
Sure.
as
In
time
general,
progresses,
yeah.
So that we have those specific references.
Yeah,
that can be
I have that
taken.
in an email.
Yeah, he's,
Okay.
that,
Just wanna make
that,
sure that's,
and we'll put that together with the packet with the
Okay.
assessment for final
I
review.
think that would be helpful, and then, I mean, if you're thinking in terms of treating this as a project, I think you should have an application on file, okay? So I think that would be wise.
Okay.
Okay, if that's
I
the
can
way
work
you're
with
thinking
you.
about this.
Please.
Because it's gonna be an awkward application.
Okay.
to complete.
The impression I got from
Appreciate it.
Jessica's email
Mhm.
was to that effect, is that correct?
We can, and I can work with Troy to help sort of fill out the app, because it's gonna be awkward to fill out when it's not, you're not asking for any tax benefits.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think though, you're right, and to get sort of the
Formula-
name, like just more of the structure
Yeah,
in the name and things like that, so that you
Well,
can.
Could I
react
suggest
to-
then that we put together a memorandum application, because if you look at this other application, there's gonna be so much.
it's not, yeah, it's not as applicable
Yeah.
to just the land
Why don't we
disposition,
just do a summary of the project,
Well,
but you want.
using the things in the application.
That are
applicable.
relevant.
I think I'd rather just have you say that.
Yeah,
Because,
that's,
because one of the things involved in the project is the verification requirements. And so I think to be consistent with your rules,
Hmm.
you should check the ones that aren't applicable and then fill out the ones that are, and then sign the verification.
Then
She's
you
got
also
a
get
point.
If you're gonna treat it
Yeah.
as an application, I
Harmless.
think that you want, to. Right, correct.
Yeah, you're gonna get those certifications as well.
Exactly. If that's how you're slotting this in, then I think you need to follow that procedure. Okay,
Who's going to do seeker if you make it a project?
well, the agency would have to, I mean, the agency has to do seeker anyway. This is an action. The
Right.
consideration of disposition of the property is gonna be an action anyway. Right? So they're gonna have to do seeker. So, right, so they're gonna need a description of the action and all of that, right? What's the action? Disposition? Is it also development of the trails? I would think it would be, because that's the whole purpose, right? Otherwise, we're selling it to the highest bidder, right?
Do we know if they'd have to go to the planning board for the trails?
I don't know.
Mm,
So that's something
Because
that
then,
would have to.
because then they would do the
think
seeker
so.
for us, we would have to
I
do
don't
it.
think so.
Yeah,
no, I don't think they,
so the agency's gonna have to do the seeker, because we normally rely on the planning board.
Could be, yeah. But, yeah.
There's no construction going on, so I don't
No.
think we'd have to put the planning board. I think.
well, that was
Our
something,
action doesn't include construction.
No, and then
There's
Jessica-
that bifurcating. for
I'm just gonna
seeker
say,
purposes.
if this is, if it's all in the city, development, and I'm not planning board attorney, can be, development can include more than building, right? So,
Yeah.
so it may well, you're gonna have to go to the building permit, find that out.
well, so this is where, to supersede that, I was saying to Jessica, if we get in there like the perpetual green clause, where it is for like no development or construction in whatever we would predetermine, and then just limit it to the trails.
So what is the proposal for like ultimate ownership and, is it?
We would retain ownership of the property.
Right, but is it under just deed to CLC, or is it a
Right.
deed with, you know, conservation easement kind of covenants, that sort of thing? What's the proposal?
Well, we were looking at just from a deed where it's protected through mission, we would not put a conservation easement on it, because we cannot hold an easement over property which we own.
Right, correct.
Somebody else have to hold that easement. We could put something in the deed in regards to that if we no longer wanted the property, it was deeded back to the IDA. We've done reverter clauses.
That I would like,
In
yeah.
these before.
because this way, at least it is within, to your point on the covenants, it's done within like the best intentions of keeping it forever wild.
There's gonna be portions of trail ADA compliant.
On this section, that would be a challenge. So because of the terrain that's there.
Well, when you start crossing that creek-ish
Right.
area, yeah.
There were, in our original concept plan, there was a desire to create an ADA accessible trail along the base of the landfill. And my hope is that we will get there and that this trail creation through Charles Williams Park to connect to Greenport will leverage and kind of put some pressure on DEC to eventually allow us to do that once they see the use of this this connector trail that
They
we
don't
would build
get-
through your
Because
land.
they didn't want any additional, like the footbridge building or any of that, if I
Right.
remember. Yeah.
Right. But if we can get DEC on the landfill portion of it to grant access, that would be an ADA compliant trail.
Can I ask a question going back to seeker? I apologize. Go backwards.
Yes,
Uh,
of course.
Is this something that, to do seeker when we're not following planning board, is this something that the IDA would cover the cost for, or does the project, or does the applicant pay for the seeker
Well, I mean,
completion?
I'm not sure, I mean, all it, we're talking about a short form, you
To
know.
fill that out
yeah,
and check.
We would
right,
fill it
but, I
out,
mean,
you would adopt it.
the handful of questions is it just the acquisition, or do you have to consider the end use for seeker?
Well, in this case, I think you're gonna have to consider the end use, because we wouldn't be considering the disposition in this case under the terms that you're talking about, if not for the development plan, right?
Right.
So I think the development plan is part of that, but it's a pretty straightforward development plan, right? You're gonna be doing paved trails, right? You're doing
You know, past projects we've done, this was different in regards to, so we've gone through seeker when we were looking to build a parking lot, not trails.
Right. But we have to go through secret because
Right.
this is a.
So this is a process I'm not familiar with in regards to how
Just
your,
the disposition is gonna include that, but your potential, I mean, the potential use is gonna be, I mean, in other words, you're not gonna, what's your plan for development of this parcel, right?
Yeah.
You're not gonna develop.
right, it seems like it'd be a pretty simple neg deck, but
Correct. So we just need
Assuming,
to,
right,
right,
Mhm.
so
We
we're
have to
just gonna
see
describe
plans.
the use of the property
Yeah.
and the potential trails.
Yeah, they have to see the application.
Yeah.
so now there's a process, right, like that's
Because
where I'm
is
saying.
there a parking lot proposed or no?
there's not.
No parking, right. So-
Now, what we would come in with is is just a high level plan desire in regards to a trail will go approximately somewhere in this area.
Right, right.
We have submitted just this past week a grant to the Hudson River Greenway related to this, about doing a trail development concept plan for this area that would have some of those details in it. So it'd be more likely that that would be something that would go through a planning board if it,
Well, that
included
counted
a
a
parking
parking
area.
area because you're going through that brickyard place on the side. I mean, like there'd be multiple municipalities that would intersect.
Right.
But this particular area, you know, you're gonna be looking at impacts on resources and impacts on the any historic areas, which, you know that there are any impacted historic areas up there, right? So even visually, so you're mostly looking at resources. Are there any effects on resources, right? So when you when you do the short form, you'll be looking at that.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's not.
If there is a cost, for whatever reason, if it ends up being that you end up deciding in your design shows pavement of some sort of the trail,
right, which is,
that then is not probably, I'm not sure.
But they would be
Like,
doing the
if there is a
they'd be doing the seeker application.
They should fill out the short form
Yeah.
as a starting point.
And
the
if
short
they
form
need to have
indicates we need-
consultants to do it, it'd be their expense.
It's at their expense.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, we just did it for free for.
okay, thank you.
Clean the date off, and then change the
A
name.
little white out.
Yeah, a little white out, resupply basically, but it is a good point because it does make sure that we have a full paper trail on all of the
Right,
steps.
because
Yes.
And it's just the first time we've done, the agency has done something where the planning board,
It's not involved.
Can do it
That's
for
secret,
us.
yeah.
Well, assuming that they're not, and so that's something you're gonna double check on. Okay.
All right,
So you're just planning then wise would be, most likely not able to look at, we're not gonna get the appraisal back in time for the June 7th meeting. I'm
No.
guessing they'll need 30 days minimum to do the appraisal by the time we hire and wrap up the scope of services.
it might be like July or August, yeah.
Which gets to the point of your then July meeting is on July 5th.
Push the following week.
Is that, so I think you have to kind of decide, right?
Yeah.
July 5th, is that a date that's your regularly scheduled meeting? You want to reschedule that?
Do we want to go for mid-month? Yeah. Just to, okay, there we go, mid-month, if we could, please.
But we are meeting on July 7th, I mean, June 7th.
June
Okay.
7th, we're meeting.
June
on,
7th, we are
yes.
meeting. Okay, I was very confused.
And-
by this. Okay.
June 7th, we meet, but we are looking to pivot the July 5th date to some, maybe,
12th or
I have
19th.
to see because I don't. I think we
you
have a
will send
conflict.
something
I
out
think we
for
have
us.
one
Okay,
in
perfect.
this room.
Um,
Yeah, I think there's.
Okay.
I'm not sure. what
Yeah.
So you're looking at maybe the 14th or something.
Well, the 12th or the 19th,
You won't make a better luck, but just
Wednesdays.
That's
with
a-
timing on appraisers, I asked for an expedited appraisal recently, and that took 3.5 months.
We just did
So
one.
why don't we get,
And
why
got
don't,
it, and we had it 2 weeks.
Oh, good.
right, let's get
Bids.
to, yeah,
Bids from the appraisers with the recommended timeline, so we can know that when we can address the next step.
right,
We
and
just did
also
one
be
with-
mindful that with the Providence Falls Skylar Port project, they may request a special meeting to meet if you're gonna postpone or reschedule the July meeting, depending on what action needs to be taken or what review needs to be taken in July. So we'll play it a little bit closer, but what we'll do is we'll put it on the website that that meeting is gonna be canceled and to be rescheduled. And then as soon as it gets a little bit closer, maybe at least at the June meeting, you can kind of, we'll figure out a little bit more what needs to happen in July and what's an appropriate date.
Right, good. Are you anticipating trying to schedule the public hearing for the June 7th meeting? Is that the goal?
Yeah, this
Because you have to
is,
get the consultant
this
engaged
is-
and so on and so forth.
this, every day we save, the people who live there are gonna have a better.
No, I'm aware, so I just want to make sure that, you know, if we're focusing on that, we have to make sure that we
We'll know,
recognize that we now have a requirement that we mail notices to our taxing jurisdictions. We can't necessarily, we can deliver them, but we have to go through the mail notice process to have that 10-day period. So we just need to make sure that we keep that deadline in mind, okay?
Is everyone aware of that, Chris? Do you want to just talk a little bit about
Yeah.
the revisions to the January?
Sure, I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but one of the requirements, yeah, sure. One of the requirements that we now have, we've always followed a process of notifying our tax jurisdictions generally by certified mail, because it's just best practice. Occasionally, there's been a personal delivery, which also gets us evidence of delivery. We now have a statutory provision that requires certified mail, so I think to be on the safe side, we're gonna have to follow that process. So just an additional thing to build in to make sure that we're following that timeline. Jessica, yeah, we always said, we can do. Did they put email in? I didn't remember. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, that helps. If we can get
We-
people to pay
we
attention
have
to give us
to-
a read receipt.
There's a read receipt requirement, though, as long as you have a read receipt and they
Right.
have
I'm not-
accepted
I'm
it.
not
But I
worried.
think we can,
Yeah.
I'm not worried about this
Right.
Let you guys
because,
do it.
because the mayor is here. And my plan would be to hand deliver it to the school district and do whatever is required.
Yes.
And have a
right, to Make sure
conversation.
they actually have.
And the
it.
county, we can deal with. I'm
Right.
not worried about it.
so what you're saying, we're gonna go above and beyond.
And there are a lot of
What's
there's
required
some
anyway.
clarifications such
Well, no, a
as-
week before they get the email.
Right, both the superintendent and the board chair are required to get notice, for example. And I think, you know, we've probably always done that. but-
Especially with a new school superintendent and business manager.
There will be in July, right? Because, right, isn't that the date? that we
It'll all
do July?
depend on what date we can get today and price from the 3 vendors who are going to do
Right.
the report.
So anyway, just to be conscious of some of these food requirements, and I think that in terms of process and procedure, you know, the board can review what's required, but generally speaking, we're having our consultant, our administrator, you know, manage that process of the notices with my assistance. Jessica, is there anything else you wanted to call out?
No, that was just, that was the big change. Yep.
I think that's it on CLC. You want to hit 601 Union project updates briefly?
Yeah, so, they are, I think that
601.
the 601 Union Street, working still with the zoning board. Actually, I think they're on the planning board. I haven't connected. They had a meeting with the planning board that was yesterday. I think it was the planning board that was last night. So they are still flushing that out and back and forth on their revision to 41 rooms. They are anticipating to be at the June meeting to give an introduction, sort of similar to what Providence Hall did. They did more of an informal introduction to sort of talk about what the changes are. The project has changed from when you heard about it a year or two ago. So to give, you know, they'll be here to talk you through that.
This is, I'm getting confused. all of these, I just want to,
Elks
601
Club,
Union
Elks
Street is
Club.
the Elks Club.
Yes.
What's the other one?
The ship captain's house across. from the police
620. The other-
20?
620.
Okay.
That's the other earlier, the hotel. was
Yeah, the whole.
Yeah,
The one across from Governor's, yeah.
620.
And that's just in stasis, basically, right?
They're still looking for an investor.
Have a timeline on that, though.
Their expiration of their IDA benefits are March of 2024.
With that one, is there, I don't know if they've been in contact to do an extension, if that's possible, or would, you know, when we get there, that might be something.
I think we told them that they need to give us 6 months and they'd have to have a plan that demonstrated that the project was truly moving forward, not just. And I think you have to look at, you have to reevaluate, criteria. Yeah.
Assess it again.
It was a 12-to-1 multiple, and assuming they complied with the other components of the plan.
Right, but you had to go through the process.
Yeah.
Any other things? Otherwise, I will open it up.
I had called in the pocketbook factory people yesterday, that's moving forward, they're getting additional, they anticipate closing on their financing. We did give, got notice from Depot District with respect to the demolition of the building for the affordable housing project. We had a couple of other inquiries, but nothing that got to the point of an application.
Okay. Board, anything else? All right, I'll open it up for public comment. Public now. All right, no public comment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.